And proceed. Okay, great. So that's today's agenda. I hope you're all excited. We'll make the most of the 1 hour 45 minutes that we have left. But before we get to, majority or rather the agenda of the day, I have a quick fire question. So in one word, what comes to mind when you think of the word tech leadership? Let me see your responses on the chat box. In one word, what comes to mind when you think of tech leadership? You can drop your response on the chat box. There's no wrong answer. Okay. So I can see empowerment, innovative, product manager, CTO. Game changer. Wow. Okay, Felix. Yes, I believe you want to be a game changer in the tech space. And for all tech leaders that are here, you should also take note of what people think of your role. So they think you should be a game changer, you should be innovative, you should be very good with strategy. Can see expertise. Yes. Any more responses? More responses. What word comes to mind when you think of the word tech leadership? Let me see two more responses and then I can go to the next question. Experienced. Influence. That's a really good quality that you should have by the tech leader. You need to be influential. But I stand to be corrected. We're all here to learn today. But it's tech. Okay. So now that you've mentioned all these words that come into mind when you think of the word tech leadership, do you wanna maybe tell us who you know in your network, in your companies, so mention one or two tech leaders that inspire you. This is that time to shine and mention your boss's name. Yeah. So please tell us one or two people, right, that inspire you, tech leaders that inspire you here in Kenya, in Africa, and across the globe. Also, just give us visibility on who these tech leaders are. Not everyday Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah. So let me see some responses there. Maybe a couple. Then we can proceed. One or two tech leaders that inspire you. Okay, so there's none. Okay, so there's some K rule of Infoblox. Dennis, can I ask you to unmute yourself, if that's okay? Introduce yourself and then tell us who Sam Keru is and what inspires you about his work. Dennis, I love it.
Hi, you're putting me on the spot.
I said we'll interact, so let's interact.
Yeah. So yeah, some is a cybersecurity expert. So if you walk into a room where he's speaking, everyone will listen. I think that's how I can put it. So he's been a very, very strong voice in the cybersecurity industry in the region. He's grown until he's relocated to the UK. He got promoted while here, just because of what he's been doing in the region. So I really get inspiration from him because he's really good at what he's doing.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Good job, Sam. I can see someone has deleted a comment. June. Hi, June. Let me put you on the spot as well. Do you want to tell us how you're doing, and who and why you picked the person that inspires you. June, you can unmute yourself. Okay, maybe June is not ready. Sylvester Musyoki, please unmute yourself, say hi, and why Faisal inspires you. Tell us a little bit more about him.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry. Please unmute yourself.
yes. Yeah, so Faisal is or was the CTO in Celiland for a very long time, yeah. And the reason why it inspires me is he's been on the forefront of the fintech business in Africa. It's like one most of the ideas we have today, including the biggest ideas in maybe M-Pesa today, uh, may have been his brainchild. He's very
Mhm.
innovative and very people centric as well. So that's why.
That sounds great. Thank you for sharing. Uh, Paul, Paul Muya. Let's hear from Paul, and then we can proceed.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Paul Muya. I'm in tech. Yeah, so the reason I chose George and Stanley is because they both, so one shapes technology at a private sector, then the other one is shaping technology in a government setup. Yeah, so that's the reason I chose them.
Okay, great. All right. I hope I hope you're in contact with George, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, okay, awesome. Thank you. Nice to hear from you. Keep the responses coming. Please let us know who are these amazing people doing again influencing, shaping the tech narrative here in Kenya, in Africa, across the world that we might not know of. Please give them their flowers. Keep them coming on the chat box. Let's get to know who these people are and all the amazing milestones they've been able to achieve. Okay, so without much further ado, thank you so much for participating. It's great to hear from you guys. And once again, we truly, truly appreciate you for taking time to attend this masterclass today. Let me hand it over to Esther to take us through the next session.
Um, Thanks, Sasha. We're off to a good start. And just as we were moving along, I noticed that we have some alumni on the call with us. Just by a show of hands, if you studied at Moringa, please give us a wave as we introduce Moringa to our guest today. If you studied here, please just wave. It would be good for us to acknowledge the presence in the call. And as we move along, I'll be your host for the next session, just taking you through more about Moringa School, just what we're doing here, the impact that we're trying to make, a bit of background on what we do. So last year we marked our 10-year anniversary. We were founded by our founder, Audrey Cheng, in 2014. And so we are just above the 10-year mark, which is not a mean feat for a training institution. We are a tech bootcamp focused on market-driven education, and specifically looking at outcomes post learning after Moringa. We started with 4 students in 2014, and now we have trained just above, as of the last year, as of the last graduation, we trained up to 12,000 students. We particularly focus on tech courses, that's technical and professional skills. Specifically, we launched our software engineering and data science, and that's what we're pretty much known for. But however, over the years, we've diversified, of course, by listening to the market and looking at how tech is morphing. We've diversified into more courses, specifically cybersecurity and product design, and of course, more advanced courses for tech professionals, such as DevOps engineering, and analytical courses such as data analytics with Power BI and Excel. We are in partnership with Flatiron School, which is the #1 coding bootcamp in the USA. And here we partner on the curriculum just to ensure that our training is cutting edge and our students are ready for not just the Kenyan market, but as well regionally and even for remote work. We have a very, very good record with placement, or when we say outcomes, in terms of our graduation and placement rate post Moringa, we are at just above 75%. And, this is from the support that we give in terms of career support for all our graduates. We have found that we are actually able to place 75% and above within a year of post-graduation. And so this is what we are doing at Moringa and have been doing for the last 10 years. We have trained students across Kenya and regionally, that's even in Rwanda, Ghana, and Nigeria, Rwanda, Pakistan. So our footprint is all over Africa, Kenya, and the globe. Next slide, Sasha. And, most people would ask, why study at Moringa? And a lot of tech professionals go through this kind of decision-making when you're starting the career is where do you go to upskill? Where do you go to study? And so these are some of, just to highlight some of the key reasons why you should consider studying at Moringa. Like I just mentioned, our programs are market-driven. And just to clarify what we mean here is that we are actively listening to the market and iterating our curriculum and delivery based on feedback that we are getting. And I think as George takes us through the session, you'll note that, we have ensured that we are up to date with market trends, what the employer and just the tech industry overall is looking for from our graduates. Our mode of delivery is quite practical and project-based. So as opposed to being heavy on lectures and, theoretical, you'll find that our learning is practical and project-based, and our alumni can attest to this. With, of course, technical mentor support. And these are just people who have already gone through these programs, gone through these courses, have industry expertise and knowledge, and are actually able to hold your hand as you study here at Moringa. Then we also would benefit from the Moringa community. Like I just mentioned, 12,000 plus graduates over the years. We have a very, very, very strong student body, as well as alumni community, as well as Moringa staff. And so you benefit from learning, continuous learning from this network. We do invest in career readiness, and by this we mean especially around soft skills training, professional readiness for the course. We're not just looking at the technical readiness. We work on career readiness and ensuring that you actually fit for the workplace after you graduate. And then just like I mentioned in the previous slide, we are a tech bootcamp, and that means you actually get to go through your course. Most of our courses are 6 to 7 months long. So it's accelerated learning. That means within that time period, you're actually done and dusted with your coursework and ready for the workplace. Next slide, Sasha. And specifically for this particular program, this has been informed by, again, the need or the gap that we're continuously seeing in the tech industry currently. We have a lot of graduates in courses that we've highlighted today that have already gone into entry-level roles, specialized in one way or another, for example, in DevOps, and are now attempting or would like to look into senior level roles, career progression into tech management. And as George will attest to, and maybe from his experience, he'll talk more about that transition. This is usually not a very direct transition. Not all tech professionals go into tech management, and we'll go into what we prepared for this program. It's a bit about the course overview, in how we've structured this course. So just as a preamble,
you've mastered the code, now it's time to lead. Do you know that 70% of people in technology feel that managing people is way harder than managing the technology itself? And only 10% of developers and engineers feel that they are ready to make the transition to leadership. My name is George Njuguna, and with over 20 years of leadership in technology, I'm now at a phase in my career where I believe that building the next generation of tech leaders is extremely important, both in Kenya and in Africa. Many tech professionals find themselves promoted, or might I say thrust into leadership, with little to no preparation. I've managed teams as small as 2 and as large as 1,800, and the leadership challenges are there. Some of these challenges are like motivating teams, building short and long-term plans, working with cross-functional stakeholders, and even managing performance. We will cover the following topics: strategy, leadership and culture, budgeting and financial planning, product development and agile delivery, risk management and emerging tech, change management and communication. Through case studies and peer learning, we'll equip you with the tools you need to build and lead high-performing engineering teams, manage projects and people with confidence, drive innovation and career growth from a leadership lens. This isn't theory, it's real-world stuff. This is the type of exposure that I wish I had early in my career. I'd have perhaps made better decisions and accelerated my growth much sooner than I did. So if you're ready to move from code to lead, let's step up together. See you soon.
So that's exactly what we want to achieve. And as Moringa, what we've lined up for anyone looking to bridge that gap between technical expertise and leadership in tech management. And so we've come up with a tech management program. This will be a 6-month part-time leadership program for tech professionals, of course, led by George Njuguna himself. This is just, just the best, I think, person who could actually take this up, having had over 20 years experience in technology leadership, managing both small and large teams. He's a former CIO at Safaricom, and very passionate about mentorship, leadership, and talent, especially for tech professionals. I believe with his wealth of experience, he'll, be the perfect person to deliver this program. And, we look forward to getting to know more about him in the next session. Like I mentioned, this is a 6-month course, mode of delivery being part-time, with both options for online and in-person learning. The time commitment overall for this course will be 20 hours per month, and the breakdown, we'll go through this just shortly. We'll have 3 hours in week 1 and 2, respectively, 6 hours in the 3rd week, and 8 hours in the 4th week for the monthly review. And of course, we'll provide more details about, the the curriculum and what we'll be learning in each week, but that's the commitment required for this course. The tuition fee currently is at 250,000 with flexible installment plans, up to 4 installments, of course, spread out during the duration of the course. That's 6 months. Who is this program for? Or who would benefit from this program? We're looking at career or tech professionals with 3+ experience. So having gone through entry level, developers, engineers, analysts, IT specialists, who are currently are individual tech contributors in teams, but you're looking to transition into a management or a leadership role. First-time tech managers, so possibly you've just been promoted and you're now managing a tech team. This is an ideal course for you, just to structure tech leadership. And professionals who are in adjacent roles to tech, so project managers, product managers, so people who work very, very closely with tech teams and are looking to move into leadership. What makes this program unique? Number one is it's going to be case study driven. That means, once again, we are actually delivering very, very relevant curriculum based on, current case studies, tech industry case studies. You have access to industry leaders, guest lecturers, and I think if you're looking to move into leadership, this network would be ideal for you. Of course, you'll have hands-on coaching and mentorship from our trainer, and in-person networking session. So again, there's a lot of value in taking up this course at Moringa. So what you're looking to learn is leadership and team management. I like that we talked about strategy when you were asked what we think or what comes to mind when you think about tech management. Yes, we look at strategy and aligning and being able to create strategies that align with businesses. We look at financial and risk management in tech, communication and change management, agile project execution, and leading in the AI and digital transformation era. So this is, again, just a brief overview. Of course, as we get closer to the start date, which will be on June 3rd, we will provide more details on this curriculum and the pacing of it. Now, how do you start your journey to joining this course? It's a very, very, very simple process. So all applications for Moringa courses, including tech management, are done on the website, and that's on moringaschool.com. You might have come across our social media pages, just information about this course, but all applications are done on the website. We will share the landing page on the chat box as we go through this session. And when you access the landing page, you complete it and fill out the application, upon which then Rosemary from our team will evaluate your application and confirm that you're actually qualified to join this course. This will also include a one-on-one interview with Rosemary, just for us to get to understand your motivations and what you're looking at, your expectations individually from this course. And then once successful, we will enroll to the course. So Rosemary or myself will be sharing this application link on the chat box shortly. We've skimmed through that, but please feel free to engage us on the chat box with specific questions, or immediately after this, we can schedule an information session with you, even individually, to clarify on this course and what we are offering. Thank you, Sasha. Over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Esther. for taking us through that overview. And yeah, for those who are joining us for the first time, I hope now you have more information about Moringa and all the ed tech solutions that we provide for you. So if you're thinking about upskilling, more so into tech management, we are that place for you. So think about any tech skill, any tech professional skill that you want to learn, you want to upskill in. Moringa is your one-stop shop for that. All right. So we've come to the core bit of our webinar today. I'm very, very excited to introduce to you George, who'll be taking us through this session on how to build, or rather, how can you build tech leadership skills for innovation and growth in this AI era? There's a lot of buzz around AI. I saw yesterday, and there's also a lot of worry around people losing jobs in the tech industry. Yesterday, there was an update around Microsoft laying off some of their staff members across the globe. So, how can you position yourself to upskill into leadership with with all these things that are happening in the tech industry? I believe George has prepared for us a lot. So please, like I said, remember the housekeeping rules at the beginning. Let's be critical, let's be present, let's be curious, and interact as much as we can. So you can leave questions on the chat box while he is taking us through this session. So without much further ado, Karibu sana George. You can take it away from here.
Thank you so much, Sasha and Esther, for that. Thank you, attendees. I think some very good numbers in terms of registration. So I think I'll switch it, and Sasha, you can let me know if you're seeing my slides well. I'll be looking for it. So thank you so much. I think one of the very exciting things about this conversation is it's something I've been very passionate about. I think during my time at Safaricom, I started a program that was called Finding Your Voice, and very much centered around middle management, new managers, and sometimes it was complaints coming. But overall, in my own journey, I've been extremely passionate about leadership and wanting to always see how I can develop and how we can continue developing leaders. And one of the first questions we'll be tackling, we won't tackle it today, but in the program is why leadership? And I tend to ask that question to people. Why do you want to be a leader? What's driving you to that? And that's something I'm really excited to hear, even from the attendees, that why are you looking at leadership? Why are you looking to move from a developer, an engineer? Why are you looking to move sometimes even from an individual contributor to be a leader in technology? And the answers speak a lot. I think many times, leadership sometimes is moving from using your head alone to also bringing in your heart into what you do in terms of guiding you. So I've titled today's masterclass Dev Tech Lead, and I think we'll just jump right into it. Very thrilled the opportunity to have all of you join us this evening, and looking forward to having many of you even next month when we kick off. I do believe, and I believe many of you will confirm this, that leadership matters now more than ever. And if I look at a lot of what's happening around the world, I think there was a mention right now about AI. If you look at what's happening globally, there's conversations around trade, there's conversations around technology. Should we be looking east? Should we be looking west? I tend to say we should be looking in Africa. But technology matters. I think so many organizations, in terms of the directions they're going, the decisions they're making, everything rises and falls with leadership. And three things I'll be diving into, as well as adding AI in there, is about the mindset shift that is needed when you're moving into leadership, uh, what it does mean to lead, and what are some of the core things, but also the growth that you would experience as well as your team should experience. Uh, and I like Simon Sinek's one of the people who's going to be inputting into this course in terms of some of the lessons I've learned and some of the things that we've been looking at. And he says that leadership is not about being in charge; it's about taking care of those in your charge. And many times, I believe, sometimes people enter leadership from a place of wanting to be in charge, wanting to have power. Sometimes one may even say maybe wanting to lord over others. But leadership is different. It's really about taking care of people, and people becomes a very central theme. And you hear me talking more and more about it. My request is we keep our questions to the end, or you can also put them in the chat, and at the end we'll just have a session to review them. And what is the shift in focus? I think in summary, I can say the big shift is between execution, uh, focusing so much on execution, then you move to strategy. But execution never goes away. It's just like operations never goes away. I think sometimes people think you're going to end up in leadership and you'll have a better time, you'll have less hours that you're spending. But in actual sense, I think I've spent more time in leadership than I've spent in any other role, because the operations doesn't go away. Whether you're a CIO, you're a CTO, there's still operations, and I believe it keeps us grounded. I know many people enjoy the product launches, development, doing the nice, exciting looking things. But at the end of the day, there is some operations, there's some infrastructure, there's some planning to do, and it never goes away. And even if the shift in your focus is moving a lot from execution to strategy, execution, operations, and all those things that sometimes are difficult still remain. Some of the big shifts are from clean code, and any devs in the room, you know what that means. What's the readability? What's the testability of it? What is the maintainability of it? What's the documentation? Those are core things that you're looking at in terms of the KPIs of a developer. You're also looking at solving problems many times, and constantly tickets are being raised. You're the one who's picking them up, closing them. There's KPIs around that. And then there's also looking at delivery. What's being delivered? How is it being delivered? You have very strict timelines in terms of delivery. But then you start talking about things like vision, and what's the vision for the team? What's the vision for the organization? How is it aligned? How does it connect? How do you inspire and rally people behind a common vision? We all come to the table with our own perspectives on how things should be. And that would be chaos if we all decided that, hey, this is the direction we're going to go. But rallying people around a common vision, aligning them in terms of how they're going to deliver, and then having very clear outcomes. And it's not just technology outcomes, but at leadership level, you're thinking about the outcomes for the business. You're thinking about customers. But sometimes, even as you're thinking about customers, you're thinking about all the stakeholders who are in this chain. And we'll also be talking about stakeholders like regulators. We'll be looking at policy makers. We'll be looking at even risks from stakeholders that need to be considered in leadership. Pat Gelsinger is a gentleman I've shared the platform with in some leadership conference where we were both speakers. And I like his quote, "A technical skills are table stakes. It's your ability to lead, communicate, and inspire that defines your growth." And one of the key themes we'll also be looking at is communication. which is a core part of leadership. Inspiration is also there. And many times in paths that I've personally charted in terms of giving direction, many times when I've entered a leadership role, I often ask, what's the strategy? And sometimes the strategy cycle is ongoing or it's about to end. But I found myself many times defining a new strategy for technology and contributing to the business strategy. And so much of the piece of a leader is actually amidst the execution, amidst the operations, amidst the volatility. Keep on looking at what does this mean for our strategy? Are we still on track? Are we still focused on the same vision and mission and objectives for the business? And so consistently strategy, and it's one of our core themes in our first two modules that we'll be looking at. Something also very important that we need to look at the core of leadership is people. And I've often said, without people, there's no organization. An organization is people, is emotional intelligence and influence. And it's extremely important for leaders to have self-awareness. How much do you know yourself? And this is one part of it could be personality tests or other psychometric evaluations that help you know yourself as an individual and yourself within the context of a team and the context of an organization. But some of it is just having candid conversations where people give you feedback about yourself as a leader. None of us, I can't, in my entire time, I can't say that I've ever met anyone who was born a leader. Leaders are not born, they are made, they are developed, they become. And it's through a process. And so with that said, we all have things in terms of our leadership that requires more development, whereas areas that we need to be more self-aware, even basically, even in terms of communication. I've often told people sometimes when I never used to want to play back some of the speeches I've given or presentations, but I found myself doing it sometimes just not to get excited about what I said, but to pick up on how did I deliver that message. Sometimes did I talk too fast? Did I talk too slow? Did I have ums in between? What was the clarity of my thoughts and delivery? And this applies in so many things in how we do, including how we conduct meetings, how we appraise team members, how we put together strategies, and just who we are as individuals. So having that self-awareness is extremely important. I want to also just talk about managing pressure. And probably the last role I held was the most pressure I've ever had, dealing with so many different things, whether it's budgets, people, stakeholders, each and every department is seeking your attention. And sometimes I've tended to say, and maybe in some of my low moments, that being a leader in technology is a thankless job, especially the higher you go. Sometimes when you're excited about your core platform being good, it's your channels that are giving you a challenge. Sometimes when your channels have had the highest availability, it's your data warehouse or your BI systems or your reports are late, consistently having all these demands. But leadership is also about managing pressure. And how are you going to respond? We talk about, teams have often talked about air cover. Are you giving your team cover so they can focus sometimes on meeting deadlines, resolving issues, or are you pushing all the pressure to the team? I think it's quite a weakness of a leader where you offload on the team and you put all the pressure on them, because leaders are supposed to be absorbing pressure to contextualize. Even sometimes pressure could be coming from your line manager or from a stakeholder, but you need to absorb it, understand it, contextualize it, then play back to the person bringing pressure the outcomes that they're looking for, and be able to work with your team in terms of meeting those deliverables. And pressure is something extremely important. We'll go into things like even breathing exercises, taking a walk, stepping away, mental exercises, mental rejuvenation. So it's something we'll double click more. Empathy, I think, is important. How much do you feel people? I've often said that when people walk into your office, into your team, your Zoom call as well, they don't leave their emotions, their challenges and issues behind. How much can you relate with them? I I do remember in part of my leadership journeys, being able, perhaps I started leadership even before I had a family. And I'd often sometimes have ladies in my team who would need to rush out abruptly, especially here in Kenya, because they're having issues with their nanny or their domestic manager, if you may say. And uh, many of the times I see the stress on their face and sometimes also challenges they'd be facing in different times of the year, sometimes a newborn and challenges. And I realized that you need to put yourself in their shoes. And later on, it actually made a lot more sense. But it was a habit I was practicing long before it. And it applies in many cases. Sometimes it's people who are dealing challenges with their in their marriage, with their children, people who are also schooling, people who are also having challenges with aging parents. You may not be always relatable to what they're going through by virtue of your upbringing, your age, or where just overall where you are in life. But how much can you understand your team and have the empathy of putting yourself in their shoes and being able to connect with them at that level? And then the last one here is how do you have influence without authority? I can tell that most people influence is based on their positions and their titles. Their position or title drops. People perhaps won't even pick up their consider following them or pick up their phone to even engage with them. And many times when you're in leadership and the more senior you get, and depending on the size of the organization and the role, you're surrounded by so many people. But a lot of this is position power. It's not really influence. And being able to influence people, I believe many times, is would people follow you even if you didn't have a position? Can you influence them in a certain direction and vision? How much do they believe in you and what you believe in? And that you have their best interest at heart, not just the interest of the organization. So influence is a theme we're going to look at because I believe many leaders lead from a point of authority and they want to back down instructions. And sometimes in a crisis, there's a space for that. But largely, leadership is a call to influence people, to sell to them a vision, to convince them, and to get them to rally behind it. Trust and delegation connects with the previous point I made. Jack Welch, who's considered in many ways to be a father of leadership with the work he did at GE, said that before you're a leader, success is all about growing yourself. When you become a leader, success is about growing others. And some three big things that I believe leaders need to get into is one is to let go. We sometimes you'll move from one level in an organization to another, or even from two different teams, but you're still finding yourself calling shots in your old team, or when you're having challenges with code, you want to say, "Give me the screen, let me go to it." But leadership is letting go and trusting others, delegating, but not forgetting them, but being there to support. It's a very interesting one, and I'll talk about it. Myself, in many times when we'd have crisis, those of you in tech, I don't know how you label them, but sometimes if you're having a P4, a P3, that's priority. A lot of the places I've worked, a P0 is total massive issue. P1 is also a major crisis. P2, P3, P4 are a bit lower level, maybe just certain number of users. And depending where you work and what you do,
these issues can be quite big. I'd find myself many times allowing the crisis team to begin to work. I'm quiet, I'm listening, I'm coordinating responses. But sometimes when it hits crunch time and the incident is taking so long, feeling a temptation to begin running the incident myself. And I had to come to a realization that sometimes I'm a leader who would trust the team and delegate, but the 11th hour, I come swooping in to address it. And it created a culture where the team knew that, okay, yeah, if we do reach X place, George is going to come in with some ideas and take over and lead all of us. But I just had to graduate from the fact that I need to let go, and we can have a coaching conversation. I can have a conversation with how did we handle this issue in a retrogress? What could you have done differently? This is my idea. What was your idea? What were you going through? But leaders get developed sometimes when they're thrown into the deep end of the pool, and you just have to learn how to swim. And if you're always going to rescue somebody just at that 11th hour, are they going to be able to swim or not? And this is debatable because it's saying, hey, you're dealing a crisis, you have the answer, but nobody ultimately has all the answers. The same development you went through as a leader to get where you are, to be able to have solutions and answers, is the same journey that somebody else needs to go through. The second point here is very important in trust and delegation in terms of a safe space. I've often found many times that people tend not to communicate in large groups or small groups, that not everybody is vocal, not everybody has the confidence, not everybody's opinion is coming to the fore. It's your role as a leader to create a safe space. Sometimes in technology, this has been costly, and I've experienced it, where somebody made an oops, but they're so afraid of the kiboko, if I may say, that is going to come and the consequences, that somebody can't raise their hand and say, hey, I messed up. Or even sometimes people can't raise their hand and say, hey, I need to know. How vulnerable are you as a person, even in your own mistakes as a leader, in your own shortcomings, that it creates a safe space for others? And what about even autonomy? Must you be in the room for every big decision? Or can you trust people, delegate, allow them to make decisions, and you provide the support that is needed? And this plays a lot in Agile, which is one of the themes we'll be discussing. I've implemented Agile ways of working, Agile processes in my last two organizations. And Agile demands one to allow autonomy in many different ways, that a team can know the what, but you don't need really to tell them the how. Inherently, I believe that we're all created to be creators, not just operators. And so within a safe space and given autonomy, people can begin to create, to come up with new ideas, to contribute, and to collaborate differently. I look forward to double clicking a lot more on each of these as their own theme. I'm looking at time. I'll just touch a bit on AI. AI is impacting every single sphere of the world right now, every single country, every single industry, and technology is not left behind for two reasons. One, the moment democratization of technology came and became mainstream, where people had so much power in their gadgets, they can get information, they can look it up, they can challenge you. Technology and leadership in technology became a bit hard. Sometimes you've done all your research and you're coming to present something, and somebody in the audience, or even be it your board, your leadership team, your exco, has already done their own research. And years back, technology voices, people with a technology background were the only voices on technology, but I'm sure many of you bear me witness that it's not the same today. And it just means that we have to be a lot more accustomed and having the understanding of what does AI mean. I'm also someone who's often said that AI has been there for a while. In my technology journey, we've been doing a lot of things in AI, be it on monitoring systems, reacting, responding to incidences proactively. But right now it's come mainstream. And sometimes also people don't know the difference between AI and Gen AI. And Gen AI is what most people are actually interacting with and call the age of AI. But as rightfully said, companies are making core decisions on staffing, on customer interactions, using AI on the future of their business. They're completely changing company strategies based on AI. And I think four big things as a leader in tech that you need to look at is one is innovation. Innovation is going to be moving so much fast. So whether it's within your own organization, your industry, globally, waiting for maybe a launch every year or every 18 months is not going to be there, because how AI is enabling the significant increase in innovation. For developers, I'm sure you've realized how AI is transforming dev as you shift more to the left, as AI begins to do things. Sometimes it's porting code, sometimes it's checking errors, sometimes it's even writing the code itself. But even just both development and product strategy. So DevOps is beginning to be significantly impacted. A lot of the DevOps tooling and CI/CD pipelines are adopting AI, and that's an area you need to be well versed with. And then stakeholders is a key area as a leader you need to look at. How you are bridging the gap between technical and non-technical stakeholders. And here comes a lot of the work you need to do on policy, on processes, on adoption, on protecting your organization and your data and your strategy and your IP. Because the moment somebody puts it just out there on OpenAI or some other Gen AI tool, your entire strategy to get insights, it's out there and anybody else can pick it up. How do we manage this? What do technical stakeholders need to be looking at? But also, how do we demystify, guide, and provide leadership in this age? And then how do you prioritize? There's so much to do now. There's so much coming to the fore. As we've talked about innovation, we've talked about DevOps, talked about so many different insights that are there, projects that would want to come, launches. And it's always to realize, how do you balance experimentation and delivery? That you are experimenting, but at the same time you are getting delivery and you're continuously improving as well. I like this quote that AI is not going to replace leaders, but leaders who use AI will replace those who don't. Couple more topics here. One big one here is about building high performing teams. And each of these is its own topic, but I'll try and touch on each of them. Like, one of the big things that one needs to have as a leader at any level is purpose. What is your purpose? I talked about why you want to be in leadership, and that's one piece, but what's your purpose? And I've often defined my purpose statement that I want to use technology to create and provide opportunities for people in Africa. And I've often asked this question in many spaces, and it's a place I teach another leadership program. And I asked this question, and we spend quite a bit of time, and many people, and some of them have worked 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, ask what I've never been asked that question. What is my purpose? And I often believe that purpose needs to be something that's bigger than you. Purpose needs to have impact. It needs to have impact in society and community, but it also leverages your skill, your influence towards it. And you may have different jobs and roles, but your purpose continues to remain and continues to be refined. But when building high-performing teams, what is your purpose? What's the purpose of your team? Mastery is important, and I found myself doing this in my last role as a CIO at Safaricom. When we started working on what we call the contribution model and moving engineers and developers from the traditional job grade system into a contribution model and beginning to identify, recognize, and appreciate people who are masters at what they do and having everybody working towards it. Part of the challenges would be, are you a center of excellence? Like many times when we think about benchmarking and doing things, we would think about other countries and big tech. Even when we talk about leadership, largely a lot of our leadership literature has been written by the West, and I would think about Europe, the US, and Japan being where a lot of our leadership philosophy has been developed. And what are we doing as Africa? And that's something I'm personally passionate about in terms of what I'm building and what I'm developing and how I'm working towards this. But are people working in your team towards excellence, both at an individual level and as a team level? And I'll break it down, assuming you have a DevOps team, you have a big data team, you have a core application team, a mobile money team, a channels team, or even if I look at chapters, talking about software engineering, cybersecurity, quality engineering, are you helping the team come to a place where they are working towards excellence and mastery in their craft and distinguishing them based on their mastery levels and seeing how there's recognition and rewards, a point I'll come to down there, based on mastery? And you need your own mastery as a leader, but also your team members need to be there. If you're leading a quality engineering team, are you the best quality engineering team in your organization, in your industry, in your country, and even on the continent? And I've always been passionate about being the best at what we do and leaving it better, improving it, and probably in the spirit of open source, contributing to the development of a craft. I believe that's what we're supposed to be doing. And I think out of this program and Moringa and my own passion in terms of development and tech talent in Africa, we can begin to have people come to our country, our continent, to learn how we're doing things differently and not just adopting and taking up what we've always done. That's a whole other theme. It's something I'm passionate about. Collaboration is extremely important. You will need to foster collaboration within your team, and this is collaboration over competition. Most teams compete within the team, compete with other teams, but collaboration is so key in getting the job done that we win together, we lose together. I can't be a lone superstar in a team that's not performing. You've seen, those of you who follow different teams at sports, even organization, how you can have the most brilliant team, but if you can't get that team to work, collaborate together towards execution, there's really nothing that you're doing because you won't meet your objectives. Rewards is also important. This is not about leaving this to your human resources team or somebody else. I think personally being involved in the rewards in your organization, the remuneration, be it bonuses, be it recognition, is extremely important for you as a leader. You can't separate this. You can't be so distant from inequalities that may exist in reality or in perception. And how do you work with your reward teams, including if it's in HR or finance, to ensure that your team members are appropriately being rewarded and recognized for what they're doing? Another key area here is, and something I'll just go back to that, we'll double click on it, is You can look at things like cafeteria style benefits. What's most important to your team members? Maybe they don't mind, maybe pension's not a priority. Maybe a super medical is not. Sometimes if you have a family, medical may be important, but you're an individual and that's not something important. And as a leader, do you have the impact, the impetus, and the influence to tackle some of those difficult things? Maybe what's important is gym. Maybe it's not parking, but what perks and rewards are there that align to what your team needs? Conflict is one that I've often found that new managers and even seasoned managers struggle with, especially if it's happening between team members, if it's happening between a leader and a team member. And I'll tell you this, it's your responsibility as a leader to address issues. You can't be in a state you're working with your team, people are not communicating, you're not communicating, you're also upset with something. Conflict has to be handled head on. You need to be on top of it, reduce it, minimize it. Ideally, hoping that it de-escalates before it escalates, and being at a place where the environment that people are working in is not becoming hostile and difficult for certain team members. And then as an engineer, as a developer, sometimes we focused a lot on tasks, but now you're looking at objectives and key result areas. And sometimes they may not be in the format of tasks, but they're tied to a larger business outcome. As I discussed earlier, they're tied sometimes to the how we do, not just the what. That you can achieve great results, but how you did it did not live up to your value system. And so maybe it does affect you in terms of your various KPIs, but also being able to have clear KPIs for individuals as well as teams, because I believe there's a reward for an individual and for a team, and hopefully it all aligns and comes together. Then feedback is key. I'd encourage some of you to read a book by Kim Scott called Radical Candor. And this is a balance. And I'd say many times, I think us as Africans, Kenyans, let me go there first, we can be passive aggressive. You've been offended, you don't like something, you don't know something, you just stay quiet and you look. And sometimes the conversation outside the room, the meeting room, is more than the conversation in the meeting room. Maybe some of it is how hierarchy and feeling maybe you'd be disrespectful, or maybe sometimes people who've done it come from a place of very big emotions. But feedback is important for you as a leader, and also feedback to your team members as well. And it's not just, I don't believe that you give feedback when you're doing performance reviews. Feedback needs to be consistent. You need to be telling your team what they're doing. You need to be hearing from them. There's feedback on the team's performance, the organization's performance, the customer feedback. Feedback's just so great. Some people call it the breakfast of champions. And consistently, how are you taking a pulse and self-auditing as well as a team, being able to look at yourselves? At the heart of it, I believe, is impact. Every leader leaves an impact. If you worked in a place for a considerable period of time, people should remember things you did. People should say, yeah, when XYZ was here, this is what they did. This is how they changed this place. And sometimes it's not just within your organization, at higher levels of leadership. The challenge some of us have is, how are we impacting the country? How are we impacting the nation? How are we impacting Africa? What is Africa going to become because we were here as leaders, that we don't leave this country and continent the way we found it? Impact is always top of my mind, even in every interaction. In this interaction that we're having, I was so happy when I saw the list of leaders. I think I've probably worked with every single person there, one way or another, either as a colleague or we worked in terms of initiatives within the industry or at a national level together. And something I do absolutely appreciate about those people and the comments that you made, you appreciate the impact that they had. But there are also people who work in a place and people forget them and they don't leave an impact. Sometimes they play it safe. Uh, Sometimes it's about, I just want to keep my job. I don't want anybody to rattle anything. But leadership is also about courage. And in all of these things, in terms of building high performing teams, rally behind a cause, and they also need to understand what impact they're making. I put there a quote that I say is, great people have learned to do small things with excellence. I think it's there from how you prepare for such a session, how you rock up every single day. Sometimes you've been asked to go do some research by your own line manager, prepare a presentation. You've been asked to even make a small program. Sometimes people think that you're going to do great things when you're in a big role. One day when I'm there, I will do this. I always ask, how are you leading where you are? What impact are you making? Because the small things build up to the big things. And we'll be exploring each of these themes in more detail when in the main program. I think growth is probably my last point that I'll make is extremely important. Sometimes people think that once you're in a position of leadership, growth has stopped, that now your growth was to become a leader. But actually, I believe you need to accelerate your growth a lot more when you're in leadership. And you're not just thinking about your own growth, but you're thinking about the growth of your organization, growth even sometimes of your own line manager, and growth of your team. And it's quite exciting, and I think for me, to see people grow. Sometimes it's people growing in terms of building a strategy, doing a presentation, going on a platform. When I launched Decode was about giving engineers a platform where they could come and showcase what they're doing, building this community of engineers in Kenya, but also giving them a platform and calling global people and putting it out there that, look what engineers in Kenya are building. And through it, people getting growth opportunities, the organization growing, the practice growing or the craft growing, but also you as an individual growing. When you think about great engineering in technologies, even what we are building and maybe more so importing or building on top of, it's coming from the US, it's coming from China, it's coming from Europe, India, and others. How do we grow our industry? And part of it is growing leadership, but also growing the various crafts that we have. And you as a person, how are you growing? How do you look at yourself critically as a leader and look at your growth areas and keep learning, keep driving, keep reflecting? And I'll close by this quote by Sheryl Sandberg, that leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence. Were things better because you're there, or are they worse? I often have asked a question. If you're a leader, when you go on leave, do people feel bad, or is that what they celebrate? That's something to reflect on. Do people have a bad day because they interacted with you? Or do they feel so much better, so much empowered, so excited to come to the office? That's a question you have to ask yourself as a leader. Are people becoming better as a result of your presence? I'll hand back to the team so we can have some Q&A as we go to close, but I look forward to spending a lot more time with each of you unpacking this and many other themes in the tech management program. Asante Sana, there's a QR code there. If you want to register for the course, you can scan it and be able to join. And I also know the team is going to, I think also the link has been shared. But Asanteni Sana, looking forward to not just joining you and interacting with you in the course, but you being part of this transformation to build the next generation of leaders for Africa and the world. Asante.
Amazing. Thank you, George. Thank you so much for that session. Very eye-opening. I've learned a lot. So we said we're gonna give you a chance to interact with George. So this is our moment. This is your moment. Let's take a couple of questions from the room. So do you have any questions for George on leadership? Okay, so as you're preparing your questions, let me just highlight some of the things that stood out for me, because my role interfaces, or rather, I feel like I'm also a target audience for this tech management program, because I currently work as a product marketing manager at Moringa School. And some of the things you were mentioning, George, I was just like, okay, I really need to up my game as a leader in my role. So, Victor, please just wait. I'll give you guys a moment to ask questions. Kindly just stay on mute. All right. So some of the things that stood out for me is the importance of emotional intelligence, right? And George, I'm just curious, how did you crack this being a dev? I know there's this stereotype that we have around coders, and techies, that EQ is just out the window. So how did you crack the code on building your emotional intelligence, and then how you applied them throughout your journey in the various leadership roles you've held?
Thanks, Sasha, and I also hope you join the course as well then, because I think leadership principles apply across, not just in technology. But I think one of the big things is just that self-awareness and empathy. And I can tell you, I remember a time when my early days as leaders, I was quite young. I think I was not even 30 yet, and I'm in a senior leadership role in a bank. And I used to leave a lot of blood on the table, and I would achieve my results, but at what cost? And I really had to work through that and just begin to understand this EQ that is as important, if not more, than IQ. And sometimes even somebody with a good EQ will make it further than somebody with a high IQ, because it all boils down to people. And so I think self-awareness was extremely important. And, from that role on, I think that was possibly the last role I held where I left any blood on the table, hopefully, I believe, and moved to a place where I'd hear people say, yes, we want to be part of George's team, not because he's delivering results, but this is a team we want to be part of. And I think over time, I've possibly, in the market now, there's probably at least over 20 to 30 CIOs who've worked under me at one time or another. And every time they get into a promotion or to a new CIO role, I tell them, please care about people. They ask me for advice. I was like, do the things we did, but care about your people. And even my last role, the last word I had to the leadership team is take care of the people. Sometimes I say my people, but I say take care of the people. And I think it's just being at that place where you're self-aware, you're empathetic, and that you realize it's all about people, and you can't disconnect people from delivery.
Okay, nice. Thank you. So we have a question from Paul. Please feel free to unmute yourself. Anyone else who has a question? Let me just see the hand emoji and we'll unmute you. So Paul, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, so my question is asked before the question is, thank you, George. Yeah, I truly admire your leadership. Yeah, no, we've met a couple of times in the men's circle session. Yeah, so my question is, so currently in my role as an individual contributor, so I've been reflecting on how they can be able to transition to a strategic tech leader. But when maybe applying for a role, maybe it sometimes demands that you have hands-on experience in maybe leading people, maybe visions and systems. So what advice will you give someone so that they can prepare for that particular lead? And the second question is to Moringa. So I noticed that for the other courses, you are having like 4 installments, but for this particular one, you've the installments are less. Is it because the transition to tech comes with more money, or yeah? Thanks.
I don't know if Moringa will take their question first, but let me take mine as they consult. Thanks, Paul, and great to have you here. And looking forward to hopefully you interacting further, as you mentioned. So I always believe in leaders need to lift their hand and be able to step up and lead. And I'm seeing a leader there who has lifted their hand. I think many times there are opportunities in many organizations where maybe there's a new project, there's a task that needs to be done, and sometimes we shy away, or we think, hey, there's somebody who's a bit louder and liked and exciting. But some of it starts with volunteering and doing things that, and even sometimes asking for assignments. Hey, as part of my leadership development, can you give me an opportunity to lead a project or to do 1, 2, 3? And I've often liked to do that. I sit on a board of a bank in the region, and they're looking to hire a CISO. And one of the things we said, let's give an internal candidate an opportunity, give them in an acting role. And I do believe in giving people opportunity. And then it's on you, whether you make it or break it. But also give people an opportunity and give them a chance to succeed. Don't give somebody an opportunity and you're not quite clear that this is an opportunity for development or for you to prove yourself. So I think they are there. I'll just challenge you, Paul, to lift your hand, offer yourself, and begin leading in that space you are. And then you start to build your leadership credentials. Thanks.
Okay, Paul, I hope your question has been answered. Could you please repeat the first part, the question that you had for us, Moringa?
Okay, so it was about the installments bit. So I noticed for the other courses you have four installments, but for this particular one, it has less installments.
Okay. Yeah, so we've sorted that out. We really appreciate your feedback. I know the economy is tough and people want more flexible payment terms. So we've adjusted that. So please, Rosemary is gonna leave some contact details on how you can follow up with our admissions team. And then she will update you on the new installment plans. Okay. Thank you, Paul. All right. So, Rosemary, please share those details on the chat box so that people who are interested in the course are able to see the updated free installment plan. All right. So, Kiura, please go ahead. You have a question.
Hi, everyone. So my question is more as someone who has been in tech for a while. One of the things that has been happening recently is that there are a lot of layoffs, and generally people are staying less in tech roles. So probably a year or two, maybe. So my question is, how can you fast track you moving from maybe a developer role to a lead role, considering a lot of us are experiencing layoffs and are experiencing like role changes, which does not necessarily give you enough time to be able to allow the company to transition you to a role. I don't know if my question makes sense.
Okay, just rephrase it. I think you've said there's been a lot of layoffs.
Yeah. So with the way current tech roles are, we are spending less time in like specific companies, so it becomes a bit harder for you to be able to move that transition from a developer to maybe a lead, since the period that is taken, a company will not ideally probably promote you within a few months. So is there like advice you would give for someone who want to transition, but who want to transition in the current market where switching jobs is also very frequent?
Okay, I think that's a good question. And yeah, it is a challenge. And ideally, if you want to lead, you might need to uh, work in an organization much longer. I do believe that. But there are also people who come into an organization and make an impact so fast that they end up in a leadership space. And so, for the time period you're there, how much did you understudy the leader you are working with? How much did you hone your leadership skills? That, let's say, now for a technology person, maybe in your next role, you become like a chapter lead, or you are leading a small engineering team, or a couple more people who are junior. I think sometimes the big leadership role may not come at first, but leading where you are helps people identify. And it even sometimes may come all the way from your interview in your next role, that you present yourself as both a developer or an engineer, but also somebody who can lead a team if you're starting off a small team, because you have some leadership characteristics and traits that people are looking for.
Okay, good answer. Thank you for that.
All right, thank you. So next is Sami. Sami, please go ahead, ask your question.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. And George, it's a pleasure to again to hear from you. We've worked with George on a few projects over the years, and so it's exciting to hear what he's talking about, because I've seen him practicing it. Now, my question is around how we as IT professionals obtain a level of trust and influence in the business, because people generally tend to look at IT professionals as ulemsewa IT. Now, for somebody like I, who wanted to scale to become influential on the business table, had even to take business studies, and so that you could almost speak the same language. But I'm curious to hear what your perspective is, because sometimes it's not just about doing your IT work well and excellently, but it's about doing a bit more so that we can be more relevant in the business arena. And I want to hear what your thoughts are.
Thanks, Sami. When you told me earlier you'll be joining, I told Sasha I didn't know that seasoned CIOs are also joining. So, and I know you expect some tough questions, but I think, Sami, what you said is really at the core of a lot of our challenges. And you almost feel like there's a glass ceiling, or a tech ceiling, or a server ceiling, or a silicon ceiling, where everybody else gets a seat at the table. And that's another book I'd recommend, Getting a Seat at the Table. And we've tended many times not to be at the table, and sometimes technology decisions are being taken when you're not there, and you're just being asked to execute, and you wish you were part of the strategy development, the thought process. Maybe you'd have priorities differently. But I think part of it is I think excellence first in what you're doing, which I agree, I found it very difficult to get a seat at the table when I was having operational issues and outages. So how do you do that? How do you move into collaborating sometimes with leaders who have a seat at the table, who can bring you along? But also, how do you become good at storytelling? Because that's something that many of us in tech don't know. I'm an introvert, people don't believe it, but I've had to develop this skill of communicating from being my blue type that would rather just be quiet and some of the things I had to tell myself walking sometimes is in a room, please greet everyone, please wave, because I would rather just walk straight to my office. So I think it's very important that we also become very good at storytelling, whether you're telling it digitally, whether you're telling it verbally. But when you do get that opportunity, Sami, in front of an audience, you make sure that you execute, because technology sometimes is very difficult in many ways for people to understand. But how do we break it down in terms that the business understands and appreciates our contribution and how much more we can contribute to the business? But thanks for asking that, Sami. I know it's something I've battled with. I know a lot of tech people battle with it.
Thanks, George. That's such a core soft skill to have for anyone, honestly. You need to know how to storytell. And we'll be learning all that and more in the tech management program, I believe. And I don't believe you when you say you're an introvert. No way. No way. Anyway, let's proceed. So some people are asking which books you had recommended. So maybe you can type them in the chat box. Yeah. So let's go. Let's proceed. We have Clinton, then Fiuras. Fiuras, I don't know why. Okay, maybe you already asked the question, but after Clinton, Brian, you can go ahead. So Clinton, please proceed.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have two questions. One is, I believe to be able to impact more on in an organization or a team, you need to build a culture that works for the organization, culture of integrity, having a focus, having to work together. And personally, I've had to work in an organization where it was not a tech organization and the culture was not towards technology and advancement. So I had to battle with that. So I'll ask George if he has any pointers in terms of building a culture for success in an organization where you have a lot of resistance, people don't want to change, people have a lot of opinions, especially currently with the Gen Z motions around, very opinionated, very straightforward on what they want. They want to do things their way. Any pointers in that will be great. Number two, how do you handle a leader who maybe just doesn't like you, or they have a negative impression of you without basis, or maybe they fear you are going to take their job and they want just to eliminate you? Thank you.
Oh, thanks. That's is it Clinton? So Clinton, I'll tell you, actually, every leadership role I've held has been difficult. By the time I'm leaving, it looks easy. But it's very difficult because sometimes people even question you, were you the right person for the job? So you're dealing with that. Then you start to deal with how are you doing it? They are comparing you with the previous leader that was there. And then sometimes also technology or even IT is not appreciated. I dealt that when I worked in a telco. And telco, the big teams are network and IT. And IT is seen sometimes as guys who push around, almost you're being brought down to person who fixes and installs printers versus somebody who's supposed to be transforming the business. I think I've had to sort a lot of that in the strategy. I've also learned that, and I've also dealt a lot with leaders who are insecure. It's something we'll be talking about in this course. Coaching upwards, mentoring upwards. Sometimes we know probably more than in the technology space than the person you're reporting to. or even in the domain. Many of you probably know a lot more than I do in your domains. I've been wrapping my head around, moving from when I first started programming, I was programming in COBOL, picked up C++. Now guys are on Flutter and Kotlin and multi-platform, and somewhere in the middle, I passed through Java. I mean, there's always going to be somebody who knows more than you do. So that keeps you grounded and humble. But at the same time, influence, that topic of influence is extremely important, because influencing sometimes is in very difficult situations, like what you said, Clinton. But sometimes in a tough situation, I think you asked a question about a tough boss, is to play the ball, not the man. And sometimes if you watch football, you want to get the ball, you won't get a penalty. But if you go after the man or the woman or the person, you will get a penalty against you. And I think it's staying there, but also sometimes you reach a place and maybe that's not the right environment for you, especially if you can't influence change, you're not growing, you're not thriving. You then start working, whether it's on personal development, networking, being part of bigger circles, to find yourself in a space where you believe you can thrive and perform. But try first, especially if it's a place where you believe in their vision and mission, work on it. But influence, building your circle, being able to work with people across generations is a challenge that I believe is in leadership, and it's not going to go away.
Okay, very, very, very nice tips over there. Thanks, George. So I'm just reminded when you talked about managing up, I'm reminded of something I had yesterday that, every manager has a manager. Every person has someone to report to. So even if you feel like you've gotten to the peak of your career, you also need to have skills, or you also need to master skills of managing up, right? So very, very good insights and tips you've shared there to help Clinton in his situation, and I believe many others. So two more questions. Brian Kipchumba, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. So I'm currently a student here at Moringa, and it's been really a wonderful session. As a person who is new to tech, transitioning, having a platform where you can, learn from leaders who have been in tech for a very long period of time is wonderful. So my question, George, is what was the hardest personal growth moment that you had to go through as a leader, and how did it change you? How did it change how you lead today?
Thanks, Kipchumba. I'll go quickly. So I see there's quite a number of questions on chat. Sasha is saying two more, but Sasha maybe will stretch a bit, so I'll answer a bit briefer. Thanks, Brian. One of the big ones for me was that not jumping in at the 11th hour, where you delegate and you sit there, you're watching, and then you swoop in and save the day. That wasn't easy. And sometimes even your line manager is asking, why are you not doing something? Why are you not fixing? Why are you not doing this? And to just say, hey, no, trust the team, but also you'll have consequences on what's going on. I think that was a very difficult one. But I'd say back when I worked in Stanbic and I was the head of business programs, a difficult role for me, because I was just moving back into Kenya, was not understanding some of the cultural nuances in the country, and also what Stanbic was going through. They had just gone through a merger with CFC. There was a lot of stuff going on, so not understanding the context the role and clashing a lot with people, and just coming to a place where I realized, hey, I needed some leadership development, and that's why I went and got training on executive coaching and learned sometimes how to engage and get the best out of people through coaching. I went through that program again some few years later in CBA. And so now I coach people, but getting to that space needed a lot of you accepting that you have blind spots, and you may not see them, but other people see them, and having the humility to accept and change.
Okay. Okay. So before I read the questions in the chat box, Donald, please go ahead. Then I can read the questions in the chat box. I've seen there quite a number.
Yeah, hello George, and hello everyone.
Hi.
My my question was kind of it was similar to the one that was asked. I've followed you from the time I met you at Decode One, and I've seen you in a lot of tech leadership roles, and you've just given us like a human moment where you had to learn from your experience. And something I wanted to ask was, could you share an experience of a time when you, while holding a leadership role, took something for granted that led to a mistake you had to learn from?
Thanks. I think, one of the big ones, especially when you're now built a high performing team, is perhaps not realizing the things outside the technical that make the team work. And I really felt this a lot during COVID, because during COVID, we couldn't have some of the interactions we'd have. And sometimes people are going down because they just needed a person. And we started doing these parties on Zoom where we dress up. It never quite addressed it fully. I don't know if the world is ever going to go back, but I do believe there's something about human interaction that we take for granted. And sometimes I've insisted, hey, I'd really like you to come to the office. Let's have a session here. Come whichever way. Maybe not all your workplaces will allow it, but that human interaction is something not to take for granted.
Great. Okay, so we have a question from Ian on having difficult conversations. For example, on how, or rather, how to handle low performance. So, what are the steps you should take to help them improve, and when do you decide to cut ties? Like making that tough decision as a team manager.
Yeah, when I would talk to my managers on this question, I would ask them, if you had an opportunity to hire someone, would you hire this person? That already says a lot. And I would also ask myself, if I was hiring this person in my team. So I think, Ian, you ask a very fundamental question. Now, and then sometimes somebody actually has performed well and came in with all the right credentials, but there's something that's affecting. So the first thing is just to understand, is this an issue on behavior, or is it an issue on maybe expertise? Behavior is much harder to fix, but you need to double click. And sometimes you as a leader may not fix everything. Sometimes you even need to, I've referred people to counseling, had conversation with them and said, I think you need counseling. There's something here going on. But I think that's about really double clicking, getting to know your people and understanding, is this an issue on technical expertise, or is it an issue on behavior? Behavior, I believe, is much harder. I would rather have somebody with a great behavior and attitude and not so good technically than have somebody who's so good technically but has a bad behavior, brings a tough vibe. But those are difficult, but you have to do it. And eventually, as you grow, people get to know who you are, what you stand for. That, like myself, you're going to have fun, we're going to do great things, but we have to perform. If you don't perform, this is the consequence. Having that very clear at the beginning, setting goals where you're both agreeing what they are, going through a very clear, well-written performance improvement program where you identify what are the issues, especially if they're technical. Also, if they're non-technical, what assistance is needed. Maybe the person needs coaching, maybe they need somebody else, but also having the courage to let go. And I know people I've let go of. I can think of probably in every organization I've worked for who've come back and told me that was the best decision we made, and they are much happier and thriving in what they're doing than where they were. So sometimes cutting ties, you are actually doing a lot of great service to someone, and holding on to them is a disservice.
Thanks for that, George. So this is a question, but I think it was also a comment from Bakari, where he's saying there's nothing wrong with Gen Z. If you go to the top consulting firms right now, you will see amazing things that Gen Zs are doing, and I agree. I work with some very, very cool ones in my team. And yeah, you just need to know how to mesh with them. And they're very, very proactive, to be honest. All right. So a question from Kimati. I believe this is the last one. Some people had asked about their book recommendations. We have typed them in the chat box. So please take note of that. So last question from Kimati. Okay, I can see one more question that has just popped in. It's okay. How do you effectively lead a team where individual performance meets expectations, but persistent attitude issues, such as being negative, resistance to change, lack of collaboration, and undermining overall team morale and cohesion?
I'll answer this quickly, Kimati. The team is always more important than the individual. And including you as a leader, you're not more important than the team and the team chemistry and morale. And if that person's attitude can't change, my view is see what other type of help you get, but maybe it's their time not to be in the team. You can actually destroy a good team by having a bad element. I think it's just that thing of if you have a rotten apple in a bag, all the apples will get rotten. And all of a sudden, I mean, sometimes it's even about simple things, about keeping time, about delivering on time, for example. And you have someone who's always may deliver well, but is delivering late. It's okay, first of all, understand, double click what's going on. But you've said it's persistent. So that speaks to maybe it's something you've tried to address, but it's not being actioned. So I think it becomes that you need to put the team and ahead of the individual. And I see it in sports as well. And sometimes the team then performs way, way better without the delivery in tech is already hard enough. You don't need people being dragged back by negativity.
Okay, great. All right, last question because of time. How do you know when it's time for you to, how do you know when you are ready to move from leading a team to leading other leaders?
Oh, wow. I think leaders are validated by their leadership, and leaders will start to come to you if you're ready to lead other leaders. But you will be called out. So one, do you have a burden for leadership? I know so many people who want to enter leadership because they want more money. What I did in my last place in Safaricom is we created a track for individual contributors and one for management, and ensure that you can be an individual contributor paid as high as the director if you're an expert and a master. And that made a lot of people drop out from applying for leadership jobs, because then they would perhaps be chapter leads or just great at what they do. There's very few people who reach there. some of the requirements were, how are you contributing to the industry? Are you contributing to policy and all that? So people also came down to earth. Okay, I'm not quite a master yet, but what I think is extremely important is people will validate you. So do you have the burden for leadership? And are other leaders asking you to lead them? Are people coming to you and saying, how did you do this? How have you built such a high performing team? And sometimes, that validation really matters, but also you expanding yourself to offer leadership, even if it's not positional leadership, but offer leadership in areas that are beyond your scope, because you're doing so well in yours that you have the bandwidth to influence and impact in other areas. Yeah. So that's what I'd call out. I've seen a question I'll pick. How do you know when you are, sorry. Tech lead with a couple of years of experience. I think we'll be talking a lot about leadership, and people could be in different places in their leadership journey. And even if you're a middle manager or you've been a tech lead for a few years or many years and you want to come and join in, I think the content is quite new, I'll say. It's content that we've worked on with Moringa that I personally have never offered it in any other program. So I would say the content is very relevant at any level of leadership. Thank you. And I think we'll close there. We'll see where we'll continue the conversations. Back to you, Sasha.
Thank you so much, George. So if you want more of this, sign up for the tech management program. George is our lead facilitator for that course. So if this has really sparked interest in you, please, we have left some information on the chat box where you can contact us, contact our admissions team, and how you can sign up for the course. All right. But before we close, before we end, I would just like to leave us with some reflection questions. And that is, as we close today's masterclass and launch, where are you in your tech leadership journey now? And where do you want to be in a year or two? I like that question that George picked, even as he was closing up the Q&A session. How do you know you're ready to lead a tech team versus how you know you're ready to lead other tech managers, right? So just reflect and see where you're at and what steps you need to take to get to the next level in a year or two. Since our tech management program is 6 months long, I believe we fit in that plan for your year one or year two on how you will grow and get yourself to the next level. We're covering so many topics. There'll be practical, there'll be case study based. We're going to give you articles, books, resources, materials and projects or rather case studies in forms of projects that you'll be working on in groups. Okay. And each and every month we'll be meeting in person with George plus other guest lecturers. I've seen we've just invited Sam here to be one of our guest lecturers. We're going to get to meet very experienced people in the industry every month just to review the projects that you have worked on. It's quite an exciting program that we have designed for you. So please take advantage. Rosemary, kindly just paste the information again on the chat box so that people can know how to sign up and contact us. So last but not least, we really love feedback at Moringa. So I'm requesting that you help us by giving us feedback, okay? And I will be sharing this form on the chat box as well. Please just click on it. Tell us how you found this session. Any areas we can improve. We really, 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 really love feedback. So kindly fill this feedback form and just let us know how you found this session. Any areas of improvement, what other topics you'd like us to organize for. And also if you have any further questions that you want us to get back to you on, there's a section for you to leave those questions for the Moringa team on the feedback form. So let me just give us a minute so that we fill this form. And CCM, he's saying he's in South Africa. Do you offer remote? Yes. Yes, the program is available remote. It's just that each and every month we invite all the students for this tech management program to come in person for a review session and in-person one-on-one mentorship. But I believe we can make an exception for you. George will see how to organize one-on-one remote sessions for you. So if you're not in Kenya or you'll be traveling in, say, these 6 months, please don't shy away. Kindly, please proceed to apply, and we will organize remote, one-on-one remote sessions. But majority of the month, you will all the classes will be running online. So we facilitate that for people who are in Nairobi, who are outside Nairobi, outside Kenya. So let's all apply. Okay, so how do we access the recordings? I will send you an email tomorrow with this recording. Okay. All right. So Paul is saying, how many people are having trouble accessing the feedback form? Let me just keep show of hands. How many people are having problems with accessing the form? Okay, apologies for that. Let me just fix that. Okay, all right, so we'll fix that and share it with you. You're gonna receive an email that has all the information. Okay, let me just see. Let's see how to sort that. Then I'll send you an email after this session. But please, when you see that email, give us your feedback on how you found this session. We're looking forward to having you in class. We are looking forward to also hosting you for other workshops, other master classes in various tech topics. So I've been your host today, Sasha, and my team, Esther Wangai, Rosemary, Agnes, have been supporting me on the chat box. So thank you so much. We really, really appreciate you guys for staying up to this point. So let's interact more on email and even social media. You can follow our page on LinkedIn at Moringa School and other social media platforms. We are Moringa School. So thank you, and I wish you guys an amazing evening and weekend ahead.